good. Okay, let's warm up with a shtickle Tanya. We're in the 10th parak. We're speaking about the tzaddik. It says the heilige Tanya, the tzaddik she'ein gomer. Let's talk about the tzaddik she'ein gomer, which we explained as the tzaddik v'raloi. And we explained this many dargas of the tzaddik v'raloi. We said every single one of the dargas of the tzaddik v'raloi is kafi, is how much he hates that which goes against God. Which in other words means how much he loves God on one side. Because if you love something, then anything which would go against the one that you love, you despise that. You hate that. So the tzaddik she'ein gomer has an incomplete love for God, and therefore shows up in his incomplete hatred for everything which goes against God. And we relate to this. Somebody you really love, the more you love them, the more anything that would hurt them or harm them, God forbid, or go against them, you reject. It angers you. I've seen tzaddikim when something was mentioned that like went against Hashem, and they went nuts. Like their faces get all red, and like really, if something is going against God or someone's trying to make a war against God, they will go crazy. Like, because there's such an anger towards that thing. So a tzaddik she'ein gomer, hu she'ein soina hasitra achra betachlis hasina. He doesn't hate the other side completely. V'lachein ein moyas gam kein bara betachlis, and therefore he doesn't hate evil in its entirety. V'kol she'ein hasina v'amius betachlis, and if the hatred and the disgust is not complete, al korcha nishar ezer shemetz ava v'tanug l'sham, and therefore it will remain some shemetz, some residue. Shmutz, interesting, yeah. A shmutz, a residue of love v'tanug l'sham. The fact that you don't fully hate the thing that goes against God means you actually have some love for it, some acceptance for it. You have some type of a delight in it. The shemetz of avitanag l'sham, that you have some amount of, acceptance and love. Ava means like, I'm okay with this. I like this actually. Even though this is a tzaddik, he has no space for just, the example we were using is fressing out on food. Because remember, we said fressing out on food is from the Sitra Achra because you're just doing something which is totally losing yourself in this world without connecting it to God. So the tzaddik gomer would hate that. It would be unacceptable. It would be disgusting. But a tzaddik that is not fully a tzaddik gomer, a tzaddik she'ein gomer, has some amount of like, okay, let them, kids will be kids, and let them, it's okay, let them eat, and it's all good. The tzaddik gomer couldn't handle, unless he found some way to turn that into a mitzvah. But if he couldn't see that was a mitzvah that was being done, it was from the Sitra Achra, he would not be able to handle that. And the tzaddik she'ein gomer, which is okay with that, loy husra b'godam atzoyim legamra. He's not removed those dirty clothing. Mikol v'kol. V'kol shekein, v'kol. V'lachein, loy nefach l'toiv mamish. Like we mentioned before, that's why his animal soul is not turned into a ally of his. Na'ach sheyesh loy eza achiza daim. Because he still has some connection, an achiza. It's a bond, a link, to these filthy clothing of his, called I'm okay with stuff of this world which is not focused on God. I'm cool, I'm okay with that, I'm cool with that. So the tzaddik says there's no place for that. Tzaddik gomer. Elashu batu b'miyutai. But in the world of the tzaddik the tzaddik v'raloi, the tzaddik she'ein gomer, that feeling of being okay with it is so bottled. He would never do it, and it doesn't really talk to him, but there's some deep-seated consciousness that it's okay. So it's batal v'koloi chashiv. V'lechein nikrat tzadik v'raloi v'ra kofov v'bataloi. That's why he's called the tzadik, and the ra is loy. He owns the ra. He's pinned the ra. He's subjugated the ra, but it's still there. Yeah, Geffen.
So how do you manifest to love the person and hate the action?
How do you love the person and hate the action? That's a big avodah. That's, you have to learn a lot of Rabbi Nachman. You have to learn Reish Pei Beis, where you're always seeing that the person is intrinsically good on the inside and the soul is good. But this is what Chazal say. The Gemara in Soita, a very important Gemara. Everyone has to know this Gemara. The Gemara says in Soita that Ein Adam Chayte, a person never does a sin Ela Shenichnas B'Roch Shtus, unless that person became temporarily insane by a maniacal, is that a word? Maniacal? Maniacal? That sounds intense. A maniacal force, a maniacal spirit came into him. That's what the Gemara says. Nobody would ever do such a thing as eat treif unless he literally became insane at the moment that he went to eat it. Because if he knew that that thing totally separates him from God, he would never do such a thing. If he knew that getting angry literally separates him from God, he would never do such a thing. Rather, what happened? A spirit came into him, convinced him to do it, and he was overtaken by that. So he was overtaken, you're right. But he didn't do it, he doesn't want to do that. He's good, he's a soul. To start seeing people as souls and not seeing people as that they got seduced by this maniacal, thank you. I don't use that word often. Some maniacal, crazy spirit that took over this person. The problem is we don't do that. We see this maniacal, crazy person, this treif eater, maniacal. Don't do that. See him as the soul that's really crying, like a child inside crying, that he's trapped. Like a lost princess. That's the whole lost princess. This beautiful princess that's been trapped by the no good one. And has been taken to a bad place. And is now being taken advantage of. It doesn't want that. So you as the therapist, as a psychologist, you want to help create now new association that person says, I'm not the things that I did, I'm the soul, I'm the neshama. My neshama was seduced into doing these things. And a person has to do tshuva for that. But tshuva is all about re-identification. That's the deepest tshuva, to re-identify. That's also, this is very deep Torah. I heard from Rav Daniel Katz. It's based on the Gemara, the Rambam. The Gemara says a person who goes through Yom Kippur and he doesn't do tshuva, it's like a person who jumps into a mikveh with a rat in his hands. Okay? So, let me ask you a question, a bit of a repetitive question, but let me ask. Like, why would he do that? Why would he jump into the mikveh with the rat? I mean, if you want to be pure, so then, let go of the rat. Right? Because it doesn't work. You can't be in the mikveh holding the rat, because the thing that's making you impure is still in your hand while you're in the mikveh. So if you want to be pure, let go of the rat. If you don't want to be pure, why'd you pay the 15 shek to go into the mikveh and, with your mikveh bag? Like, what are you doing? Like, why did you show up? Just hang outside with your rat.
It's a nice hot mikveh.
This is a hot mikveh, so let go of the rat. Like, that's just weird. What's with the rat? Like, what's up with that? So, this is very deep. You see the guy in the mik, and he's like going like down the steps to into the bore with the rat, and they're like, "Yo, bro, like, what's with that, vermin in your hand?" And he's like, "What do you mean? Like you're holding a lizard, a rat, it's all the same. You're holding a rat, It's like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, like that thing, it's like moving in your hand. Like, what is it? It's like, that? No, that's me. That's me. I love him. My precious. I love him. Do you know how deep that is? He thinks that he's his sins. So much so that the reason why he's walking into the mikveh with the rat is he still is identifying that that is who I am. I'm a sinner. I'm an angry person. I'm a horrible person. I'm a fill in the blank, treif eater. I use more clean examples. I'm those things. That's not you. That was a external maniacal force, that like a rat that is taking over you, that it's so maniacal that it convinced you that that's who you are. That's the nature of evil. It convinces you that that's you. It's psychological warfare again. It's so deep. That's where it really gets bad, is it convinced the person that that's who they are. That people think that this is what they are, this is what they do. It's sick. And it's not just because a person, God forbid, came from a family where he saw somebody, beating somebody else. So that's what I do. It's like they think that that's me. It's integrated. Herb Weinberger one time said, I wouldn't call it funny, but you'll hear the punchline. So somebody came in, and husband and wife, and they said it was clear that the husband was a very angry person, and he was yelling a lot. Sort of Weinberger's like, why do you yell at your wife? Like, stop that. So he said, Rebbe, my father would yell. His father yelled. His father yelled. I come from a long lineage of very angry, yelling men. It's a Messiah. It's minhag. Minhag v'seini v'yadein. But am I going to stop yelling? That's what I do. That's who I am. No, that's not who you are. Just because you saw that growing up, yelling in the house, and sometimes worse, that's not you. That wasn't them either. There was a force, there was a real shtus that came into a person. So we always have to separate between the ruach shtus that's convincing a person to do things and the neshama. All of Chassidus is what we just said, is making that distinction. Okay?
What was the punchline?
No, the punchline was I come from a long lineage of yelling men. V'al kein, gam ahavosai la'Hashem eina betachlis, v'lechein nikrat tzadik she'eina gomer. V'hine, madrega zu mischalekes l'revovois madregas. This level of tzadik she'eina gomer, i.e. to the degree that the tzaddik has discussed from anything which would be concealing God in the world, is divided into many, tens of thousands, which he means countless levels of how much the person has it discussed, for that which conceals God in the world. And not only that, be'in bechinas miut hara, hanishar ma'achas me'arba yisaidis, haroim, not only in how much, but also what type of acceptability. Remember we mentioned all the way in the beginning of the Tanya that in your animal soul there's 4 main energetic qualities: earth, fire, air, and water. That we mentioned that earth is the negative traits of laziness, of depression. Fire is the negative traits of anger, of haughtiness, like the flame jumps up. Water is the negative traits of taivas, of just sensual taivas, out of control. Air is the negative traits of being lightheaded, etc. They all mirror the physical quality. So a person could have an acceptability to one of those. It doesn't have to be that he's totally okay with every element. It could even be one of those 4 areas. He actually has something about depression. Like, he's like okay with people being depressed. Or he's okay with people just fressing on their taivas. That would be water. It doesn't have to be that he's okay with all of them. He's just showing you how delineated this can get. Ubein bituloi b'miyutoi, and even the amount that it's batal. Is it bitul b'shishin al derech mashal? Which shishin means that the taste is just gone. Al derech mashal be'elef, or like 1 in 1,000, where then you're like actually losing the very thing itself. Viravava, we have these different things that come up in halacha when something is bitul b'shishin, bitul be'elef, bitul b'ravava, 1 in 10,000. V'kayotza al derech mashal. V'hein hein b'chinas tzadikim harabim. And this now shows us how there are many, many different types of tzaddikim. Shebechol hadairis, like we know in every single one of the generations that there were many, many tzaddikim. Each one of them on their different level. In each one of them in their own way and their own place along this continuum, how much they have a love for God. And then the corollary of that is how much they are disgusted, literally a visceral disgust of that which conceals God in the world. Yes, Dan.
So you're saying about the shishim, if let's say you love God like 59 and then the one is for like is hate, if that's the opposite, does that mean because about the shishim that means it's 100%, it's considered 100% love?
Not in this case, no, it's still there. There's a reality of something still being there, but it's batal. It's batal. The idea of bittul is that it has no flavor, but the thing is there. The tzaddik gomer has nullified it to such a degree that remember we said he turns the Yetzer Hara into an ally. He showed the Yetzer Hara, which is a koyach and ava, that what you really have a taiva for is taisvus, is pnei Yeshua's, is Rabbi Kivi Eger's. Kediyis the Gemara, and now we can understand why the Gemara says, come on, Sukkah, the Tamneser Alfet Tzadike Kaime Kamed Akut Shabrichu, that there are 18,000 tzaddikim, like in this circle, talking about Tzadik Shein Gomer. So 18,000 out of how many Yidden? 15 million. So what's the math? They're around.
Per generation?
18,000. Remember, Beinani, we can all become. But 18,000 is, then you're in the world of Tzadik.
It's more than that, though, I'm saying.
Is it tzaddik?
Tzadik Shein Gomer.
Irrelevant.
Shein Gomer. Which means, like, do the math. Maybe there's a guy in high school growing up that could be a higher concentration than, Meir Sharm and Bnei Brak.
Seems like
But remember, the tzaddik, Shein Gomer he has no more battle with the Ram. It's just that his feeling about it is not complete disgust. You see how subtle that is? And then many, many layers of how much it is, both in Kamas and Eiches.
So I heard from a Rav that saying that like you said, you trade instead of this trade, instead of saying this is disgusting, you say no, this actually looks good. But
That's the Rambam. It says that but Hashem said I can't have it. So there the Nakuda is that what the Rambam is trying to tell you is that you should be disgusted not by the flavor of it or the smell of it, but the concept of it, that it's treif. God said I can't eat it.
Does that kind of fit into this or not? Because it's kind of saying that you still have that you don't really have the type to eat it, but you still say you say it would be nice to eat it, but it's more ishmak.
The Rambam is saying don't think that it's something which is just a rational reason why. Oh, it's not good for your health, or it's like ew, it's treif. Like I couldn't eat that. No, it's something that would have been fine and people would have been interested in, but I say absolutely not because Hashem said no. And he's completely clear about that. And that does bring a muse to the concept of it. The concept that it's Sitra Achra. Which, by the way, that thing, the notorious, is called the Dover Acher. It's literally the other side. So these 18,000 tzaddikim, Achal Mailat Tzadik Gomer, that was Tzadik Shein Gomer. But a Tzadik Gomer, these are basically a couple per generation. Hu Sha'am Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. This is what Reb Shimon said. Re'isi b'nei Aliyah. I saw b'nei Aliyah. We're going to have to come back to that tomorrow, that expression b'nei Aliyah. V'hei muatim, and they are few. Shalachei nikroim b'nei aliyah, one pshat shemahafchin hara u'malim oisay l'kedusha. One pshat in b'nei aliyah is the ones that go up. Literally, we use that term in yeshiva all the time. What a ben aliyah. If somebody calls me for a shidduch, for one of the guys, the best thing you say, this guy's he's from the b'nei aliyah. He's a ben aliyah. He's just steiging. He's always going up. Like a ben aliyah. That's what somebody wants to marry. Someone who's going up and up and up. But if the Shat Chanit says back, do you mean what the Tanya says in Perek Yud? Like he's like one or two of the generation that he has turned his ra and been mala it into toiv mamish, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Is that what you mean? So at that point I'll say, wow, you're a real Talmid Chacham. I was borrowing the expression, unless mamish here we have one of the two, one or two, and then I'll say yes. And then I would say, I need like a Sarah Imeno, level girl. I hope you have that as well. Okay? Kedi'isa b'zoyar, b'hakdama. And now Rabbi Shimon's going to give us the CV. If you want to go into his Mesivta Derakia, you want to go learn in his yeshiva, he's going to tell you what you need to qualify. Kisharotz Reb Chia wanted to go up. Lalois lahecha Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He wanted to go up to learn by Reb Shimon up in heaven. So he heard a voice come out. Shama kala nafik. He heard a voice, a heavenly voice, come out. Like he was knocking on the door. Like, can I come in up there? So the voice said the following: Va'amar man minachayim. Those amongst you. If there are those amongst you that chashoicha, darkness, mahafchan l'nahayra, you are able to convert to light. V'tamin meriru l'miska, and a taste of bitterness, you're able to sweeten and turn into something delicious. Ad loy yesan hacha. If there is any amongst you who can do this, enter, and if not, do not enter. You must be able to turn darkness into light and bitter into sweet. And then and only then can you enter into this heichal, into these chambers. B'nei Aliyah means those who have fought through Ra and converted it, gone through the darkness and elevated it, which actually sounds like not the people who started as a tzaddik gomer going to see Reb Shimon, but those that had darkness and then converted it to light, which could be anywhere from a Rasha to a Beinoni to a tzaddik v'raloi, and then became tzaddik gomer.
Is this mashma that's the highest Mesivta?
Nashmat's the highest, Reb Shimon, which we all kind of know, and there's a reason that the whole world feels the secrets are with Reb Shimon. And that's why in the Zohar it says that B'dah Safra, with this Sefer, Yaskin Yisrael Min Galus B'Rachmim, that we're going to come out of our Galus with Rachamim. Das Sefer HaZohar. With this Sefer HaZohar, we're going to come out of a long exile, going from darkness to light. Even the name of the Sefer is called light, is Zohar. And it's a light that pierces through the darkness. Leis nahayra, alaman the yotz min chashaycha. There's no light, rather only that which pierces and is birthed out of darkness. This is all Purim Torahs. This is all Baruch Haman, that we can get to such a darga that from the V'nahapechu, that from the darkness and everything that's going on in the world right now and in every generation, all the salvation will come. We're going to be malit. We're going to convert it. We're going to take all the darkness and we're going to see that even the Hamans of the world are going to become grace Chasidim. Right? That's how all the Chassidish stories go. The biggest misnagid always becomes the biggest chassid, the one who fights it the most, with the most darkness. They become the biggest. Because the more dark that something is, the more light we can see. We should be zayich to this. Amen.
Amen.